Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. So this is Penny Sansevieri with Amy Cornell, and Amy, you came up with this idea. Actually, I was starting to talk backwards. That's
what happens when we record in bulk, everybody.
I know. Different language. Like, wait, what's my name? You came up with this idea. Do you want to tell our listeners sort of the genesis of this?
Yes. And sometimes I wish we could afford to have the Reading Rainbow, sort of tagline music. And what was that other PSA? The more you know. Was that an NBC thing?
Oh, yeah, that was an NBC thing. Yeah,
we can afford that. So we're not actually using it, but that's kind of what the genesis of this is. Sometimes we do shows where we just say, you know what? This doesn't get said enough, and it's not necessarily about teaching y'all how to do something, but sometimes it's just about straight knowledge, education, you know what I mean? Things that you need to keep in mind. And Penny and I chatted the other day because we have some really savvy clients that we're working with right now that are really watching their data. They want to learn what's working, what's not. And we so appreciate authors that are really engaged in their own success because they realize our time together is finite, and at some point they're going to be driving the train all by themselves. And we had a client recently asking about sales rank and sales because they're tracking their sales, but yet the sales rank is changing. But it goes both ways. Either I feel like I'm selling more books this month than I have been, but my sales rank isn't improving, or the other way around. Like my sales rank seems to look pretty good in the big scheme of things, but I'm really not selling very many copies right now. So I went to Penny. I said, what is the best way to explain how the difference between what you're actually selling and how your sales rank is calculated on your product page on Amazon?
Well, and that is a little bit the $10,000 question, because there's a lot of, so the Amazon sales rank mystery is there's a lot of blogs that cover this. A lot of people talk about, well, if you're here, you're selling this many, and if you're here, you're selling this many. But the issue on sales rank is a little bit more complex than that. So, but generally speaking, if your sales rank, and by the way, the sales rank that we're referring to, because again, I know we get in the weeds a lot, so I want to make sure y'all are tracking with us. So when you scroll down on your book, under book details, you'll see the sales rank number. And if you're 27,000 and less, so if you're 1 to 27,000, it's considered the top 1% of Amazon, right? Which is great, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that you're selling thousands of books a day. Because the sales rank is a combination of clicks and sales, right? So if you send out a newsletter, for example, to all of your fans, you're like, oh my gosh, my new book is out. Hopefully every single one of them will buy a book, but probably more of them are going to actually click on the Amazon book page rather than buy it. That's just sort of the rate of attrition, right? Mm-hmm. And your sales rank will reflect that activity. So there are a lot of websites out there, blogs that talk about the math of the Amazon sales rank. And it's a little hard to prove or disprove this, because the other thing that you have to factor in are the subgenres, right? And how many books that you need to sell to hit number one in those subgenres. And we talk about this a lot as it relates to Amazon categories, right? So if you're in a category that has only 4 other books and you're number one in that category, you're not having to sell 400 books to get to that number one spot, because you're the 5th book, there are only 4 other books, right? So you have to basically sell 4 books to get to number one. And that's
everybody's dream.
I know. And that's part of the reason why, yes, I understand that we want to watch our sales rank like a stock market junkie. And a low sales rank is always good because you're getting lots and lots of attention to your Amazon book page. And many times Amazon ads will cause your sales rank to drop because the lower sales rank, again, when I say drop, that's a good thing. The lower sales rank is much better than a higher sales rank. But if your book sales aren't corresponding with that sales rank, then your Amazon page is not converting, which kind of presents a problem. But the other piece of this, and this is convoluted, I understand this, I'm trying to unpack this as thoughtfully as I can. The other piece to this is that oftentimes Amazon sales are delayed in showing up. So when I tell this to authors when they're running Amazon ads, that Amazon sales on the ads dashboard are often delayed 7 to 10 days. And it's not like Amazon's not trying to keep anything from you. It's just sort of how their system works, right? So living and dying by your sales rank, I understand that that's great. And we all want to get the bestseller flag and all this other stuff. But it's kind of a slippery slope. I mean, Amy, am I making sense?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the reality is Amazon doesn't really want us to know.
Amy has once again distilled this down into something that's a little bit more manageable. Yes, that's exactly right.
No, but I think you bring up a lot of good points, Penny, because these are all things that I think a lot of authors forget to consider, so and I'll be very candid with everybody, being on the marketing and promotion side of it and just generating awareness for books. Obviously our clients want to sell books. Like, we absolutely get that. But there's so many different elements that come into play when it comes into what eventually leads to a sale. And that's kind of why I also appreciate Penny talking about this and breaking it down, that it's never just a very linear, one stop for anything in this business. There's so many different elements that have to come together in order for, and same thing with, the sales rank versus sales question. I mean, even you mentioning the fact that both clicks and sales, that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me as well. It's like, well, that makes sense that Amazon's rankings are not just strictly on basic sales data.
Right. And, you can test this out yourself. I mean, don't have to take my word for it. I mean, test this out yourself the next time that you send a bunch of people to your Amazon page or what. And you have to be careful too and this is also going to get super in the weeds, but it's worth mentioning. You also have to be careful of IP addresses. So a bunch of years ago, when I was first in business and Amazon was very new, which now makes me sound super old because my business is essentially the same age as Amazon, or maybe a little bit older. I don't know. But anyway, Amazon. So there were a lot of people that were running Amazon bestseller campaigns, and they were like, okay, so you just have to buy 1,000 copies of your book and you'll get the Amazon bestseller ranking and you get the flag and everything. And people are still trying to sell that, right? But what Amazon realized is that they realized that all these sales were being made from one single IP address. And your IP address is the address that is where your internet is, right? So like Amy's IP address is going to be different than mine because we're in different locations. And Amazon said, well, so if you buy 10,000 books from one IP address, even if you do it separately, we're counting that as one sale.
Blew that out of the water.
Yeah. So that's the other piece of this too, is so that but if you test this with, let's say you're sending something out to your newsletter, or you invite a bunch of people just to click on your Amazon book page randomly, just during today, here's a link, just click on it, whatever. I mean, you can test that. You'll see that your sales rank will start to drop. Doesn't necessarily always correlate with book sales. So the sales rank is a little tricky. I mean, I think that the sales rank is important, but if it's not correlating with book sales, then there's something else that's going on where you're sending a lot of traffic to your page and the book is not selling. So there's something wrong with your Amazon book page, which I realize is a whole separate conversation.
Right. And
go ahead.
I think authors also, I was just saying, but there's always something to be done, even if you're not thrilled about your sales consistency, keep an eye not obsessively, on your sales rank though, because there's ways to use that in your favor. Track when you've got a great sales rank. Make sure to promote that.
Yeah.
I think. That's great. That's a great, shameless shout out to yourself on social media, because as Penny said, like once you get below a certain number, you are quite literally in the top percentile for books on Amazon. And that's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
It's a very competitive business. So don't because when we're working with clients and we see a great sales rank, we make a point to bring it to their attention because that's a really big deal. You may be thinking that a lot of other things aren't necessarily going right. You may be feeling a little discouraged with your book marketing or how your book's performing, but you might be surprised at how often your sales rank, kind of there is a silver lining there. And, there's a light at the end of the tunnel because it does mean something.
Well, and the other piece of this though, too, is that it's there's nothing wrong with getting a bestseller flag, even if you're only selling 4 books to get to that bestseller flag. Everybody wants that bestseller flag. I love when I get bestseller flags on my books. We tout those on social media like it's, the New Year's Eve, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that it's important to understand that the Amazon sales rank reporting is not necessarily such a straight line. And if anybody has had a different experience, by all means, send us an email, because as we know, Amazon's very cone of silence. My experience with this is only based on testing that I've done and what I've seen with other clients and what I've seen with my own books. So that's but Amazon there's just always so many mysteries that are going on, that we are here to unravel. And I know we've done a lot of shows on Amazon recently. So this is just another one in the line of the Amazon, the Amazon series, which we may have to rebrand this podcast.
I know, right?
Right.
But yeah, keep that in mind. So if any of you have looked at your sales rank and have wondered why it doesn't totally match up with everything else that you're tracking, hopefully now you understand a little bit more about why and how to read going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, if you've had a different experience or if you want to give some feedback on this show or any show, always feel free to write us. And as I mentioned, we love reviews wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.